Hello, and welcome to today's roundtable discussion on how resource and recycling organizations are leveraging sustainability insights to grow their volumes and market share, and the pressures others are feeling to reimagine their businesses to report their own carbon reductions. I'm DeAnne Toto, Editorial Director of the Recycling Today Media Group, and I will be moderating today's event. Sustainability insights, circularity, and carbon reduction goals are becoming business realities. And this exclusive invitation-only event is designed to help you navigate these challenges related to sustainability and leverage new opportunities. Today, we'll look at how these trends are affecting recycling businesses, including your own in our roundtable segment of this webinar. At that point, we will automatically unmute you, though you have the option to re-engage the mute option if you prefer. If you would like to weigh in on a topic or pose a question, please use the raise hand function in Zoom, at which point I'll call on you to speak. If you would prefer to pose a question to our presenters or submit a comment in writing, that option is also available, but please use the Q&A button, not the chat button to do so. I'll remind you of that later on as well. Some of the topics we will be delving into today include the impact of sustainability insights on the resource and recycling industry, success stories of companies leveraging sustainability insights to grow volume and market share, how to prepare for the future carbon reporting and reduction requirements, and how organizations are successfully measuring and reporting their Scope 3 emissions. Before I introduce our other panelists, I'd like to welcome Michael Winton, who is President North America at AMCS. Michael, the stage is yours.
DeAnne, thank you. Really excited to hear what Julia and Geoff and Raj and you have to say on this topic. This is actually a really exciting area for us. And so this concept of performance sustainability is something that we feel like we saw emerging 2 to 3 years ago, and really decided to align our company, our mission, and all of our solutions around this concept. And in simple form, it really is the idea that profitability and sustainability, or green and growth, are not incompatible. They are not incongruous. In fact, and so we believe that there's opportunity for sustainability really to be a differentiator and a lever for unique growth. And it's one of the things, as I said, we've aligned our entire company around this mission, and really driven all of our solutions to impact every bit of the value chain for our customers and key processes for our customers to drive this concept. And so, at least two of our kind of preeminent thought leaders on this front globally are Geoff Aardsma and Raj Jalim, that you'll have a chance to hear from today.
Great. Thanks, Michael. So our agenda before us today involve introductions and meeting our speakers. Then we will have a fireside chat with Julia Mangin, Head of Sustainability at Recology. That will be followed by the roundtable discussion, where all of our attendees will have the opportunity to participate, and then we will share some closing remarks. So let me introduce our panelists for the first round. I'm going to leave it to them to share their backgrounds and current positions, and how sustainability insights are playing a critical role in the shift toward a circular economy. So first, we have Raj Jalim, who is Global Head of Performance Sustainability at AMCS's Fig Bites. Welcome, Raj. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so very much, DeAnne, and to all our attendees, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to sit with you on this Performance Sustainability Executive Virtual Roundtable. A bulk of my experience and the perspective that I bring to this conversation lies within the sustainability space. So helping organizations, just like many of the organizations attending the webinar, to navigate the ever-evolving sustainability landscape, and then connect the positive business outcomes that they're hoping to achieve with their sustainability program. To Michael's point, in many cases, these organizations think that positive business outcomes and sustainability programs can be a bit incompatible, or at least they're not sure how to connect them. And my expertise is actually helping them navigate that landscape. So looking beyond the scope of just environmental performance, which is very important, but looking beyond that scope and touching on other elements of performance sustainability when you're getting into the realm of things like the circular economy and carbon reduction and social impact value as well. So many different spheres of sustainability topics. So very, very, very keen to hear from Julia and hear from the audience and have some of that conversation over the next hour or so. Thanks very much, DeAnne.
Thank you. Next, we have Geoff Aardsma, who is VP of Solutions at AMCS. Geoff, give us your background, please.
Thanks, DeAnne. And welcome to everyone. Really excited to have an audience and our roundtable. DeAnne, thank you so much, and Recycling Today for hosting our event here. My role at AMCS is really to help make the solutions that we bring forth across our digital platforms land inside of the customers that we work closely with, and have the impact from an operational perspective, from a customer impact perspective, from a growth perspective, that really make the software and solutions tangible. One of the things that we, as Michael had indicated, that we're truly excited about and that we've been tracking and building into the DNA of just about everything we do is how circularity and sustainability is creating unique growth opportunities for our customers. Not only inside of the industry that we recognize, but actually expanding the reach of the industry and attracting new investments and new operations into that. I'm excited to speak with Julia about a little bit of how Recology is taking advantage of some of those opportunities and growing their business in a way that we recognize throughout North America and really throughout the globe. So really excited to have the conversations today. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by Julia Mangin, Head of Sustainability at Recology. Julia, welcome, and please tell us a little bit more about your role.
Thank you, DeAnne, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to jump into this topic. I think Michael did a great job teeing it up. Many, I'm sure, that are tuning in have dealt with this sentiment that profitability and sustainability are incompatible, and that is a big part of my role, is kind of proving that wrong, and demonstrating to our internal and external stakeholders where those synergies actually lie. So I'm our head of sustainability at Recology, and I oversee the corporate sustainability side of things, so our disclosures and reporting. But kind of the other big piece of my role is really in this like sustainability partnerships and like innovation type area where I actually find to be the most exciting, and we'll probably get into some specific examples in the fireside chat, but yeah, very excited to share a bit about how sustainability is a major differentiator for Recology. It has helped us win new business. It's something that we're recognized for, and we've been able to lean into that and take advantage of that. And at the same time, I love learning from others and what other companies are doing. So for those on the webinar, definitely hope to hear from you all in the roundtable piece of this.
Thank you, Julia. Now I'm going to hand things over to Raj and Geoff, who will kick off our fireside chat with Julia.
Thank you so very much, DeAnne. Geoff, I don't know if you wanted to go first, but I immediately had a question feeding off Julia's introduction. And Julia, thank you so very much for sharing with the audience a little bit about Recology and your role at Recology. I'm curious, the title Head of Sustainability is It's now coming on stream for many organizations. It's a role that they had to figure out why they need, and it sounds like Recology had figured that out before many other organizations. What led Recology to creating such a role, to defining a sustainability need that needed to be spearheaded by a head of sustainability?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was actually asked that recently by someone else too. Um, and I think it is because Recology saw that sustainability is a key differentiator for us, and maybe a bit more about Recology for those that aren't super familiar with us. We are, a waste management resource recovery company located on the West Coast. So we operate in California, Oregon, and Washington. We are a vertically integrated company. So, we do hauling. We also own transfer stations. We own MRFs. We own compost facilities. We own a handful of landfills. Certainly, we say that, when we do own many more recovery facilities, about 10 times more recovery facilities than we do landfills, kind of aligning with our vision to be a resource recovery focused company. But, in the markets that we operate in, sustainability is important to our customers and our stakeholders. And so early on, without having a formal, sustainability program and even a formal, head of sustainability type position, we we're implementing innovative and sustainable resource recovery practices that were well received or were asked for by our jurisdictions and our customers. And I think it became clear that a lot of things were able to happen organically, and then you kind of run out of the things that happen organically, and you have to be a bit more strategic and a bit more intentional about how you are integrating sustainability into the business. And so that's been a big part of my role is not that sustainability is separate and kind of an extra thing, that it is core to our operations, is core to growth, and it aligns with overall business priorities. So yeah, it's been nice to see that grow. Certainly there have been others within the industry that have had sustainability departments around for quite some time, and then there are others that are newer. And I think it's an opportunity for the early pioneers to share their learnings, and for those that are newer to learn and maybe learn from mistakes and learn how to take things and adapt for your geography, your business. Because I think that's something that I'll get into as well, is it does get very community specific, and so it is important to tailor it to your business.
Thank you so very much for sharing, Geoff. I'll let you.
Yeah, no, and Julia, one of the things that that I really like is the way that that you describe Recology's approach to sustainability in really recognizable terms. And that's one of our favorite parts of really kind of when we talk about performance sustainability, is that these aren't unique and what might be seen as innovative business practices. They're really good business practices, but what differentiates them is that the measurement, right, and the decision to start measuring not only from an operational efficiency or financial perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective. Maybe talk a little bit about how Recology has kind of built a resource ecosystem. What are the components of sustainability for Recology, and how does it surface in the operation in kind of recognizable ways?
Yeah, I think, yeah, we focus on this idea of building resource ecosystems, and it's like, what does that mean? I think it's, it refers to creating kind of closed loop systems within the communities or the ecosystems that we operate in. And so that means like looking outward at, what just waste generally is being generated, and like how do we fit into that? Are we completely vertically integrated in that community, meaning we're the hauler and we're the transfer station and we also have the MRF and the compost facility, or are we working with other partners, and how do we leverage, whatever resources are available there? So we certainly where you are vertically integrated, I think there is definitely, I would say, a bit of an advantage there, right? Because you can kind of control all aspects of creating this ecosystem. You control what happens to the waste, you control how the waste is being processed, what markets you're delivering to. And, we've found that we're able to kind of build upon that by, feeding our own facilities and saying, okay, we're going to roll out more programs. We're going to roll out more recycling and composting programs because we have these assets, we have these MRFs, and we have these composting facilities. And if we can generate even more tonnage, that creates a clear ROI for upgrades and expansions. But then even outside of just, I think, the like resource recovery piece of it, it's also, looking at our operations and saying, how can we create closed loop systems within our operations? So can we, drive demand for more renewable fuels within the region that all of our operating companies can take advantage of, and that helps, lower the cost of those renewable fuels. Can we generate renewable fuels from our operations? Or if we can't, and then can we use those in our operations? Or if we can't do that, can we at least, give that energy back to our communities, sell it back to our communities and provide like that power to the grid. I think, we are a large regional company, but also in many ways we're still a very local company. We operate still a bit like those like mom and pop type companies in some respects, because we recognize how unique each community is. And one jurisdiction in California may comply with certain regulations in a different way, and they might be on very different journeys. And even though we're the hauler for both of them, our operations may look completely different there too. And so, it is really a true partnership for us with the municipalities and the cities that we work with, to figure out like, what is this kind of custom approach that will work for them, what programs and services work, and how can we leverage our own resources to implement that.
You mentioned one of the tangible benefits there, Julia, being the ability to resell that power to the grid, right? Some of the power that was being generated. Were there other measurable, tangible benefits from developing this closed loop system that the business was able to realize?
Certainly. I mean, so in that example, that was I think part of like a long journey for Recology in better management of landfills. So, we only own 2 active landfills, and in California now, all landfills, are required to have like gas collection systems, but we did that before it was required. And that, I think, is an example of how, we have just been able to be successful in taking advantage of the unique factors in our market. Is, we recognized that we could get certain credits and incentives for installing these gas collection and control systems at our landfills before it became required. And that, significantly offset the cost and made it lucrative for us to do so. And so we began collecting that gas, and then, worked with a developer to develop landfill gas to electricity plants at the landfills. And that's straight to the bottom line. If you're able to work with a developer to do that, they cover the capital costs, and we get a royalty from that. And so all that is flowing straight to the bottom line for Recology. So we're getting that revenue from sales of the power. That power is going to power, to the grid. And then we actually also have taken some of that power to power our own facilities. We have a composting facility co-located on site at one of our landfills. And so that the power that we generate powers the entire facility. And then, whatever excess, which we still have quite a bit of excess, then that's sold to the grid. So we've kind of internalized that and used what we can for that closed loop system. And then the rest, we just kind of give back to the community.
Those two, that's exactly the sort of innovation. Strictly from a sustainability lens, that's certainly the sort of innovation that makes any form of stakeholders happy, right? From investors to owners to anyone who has a vested interest. That's the sort of innovation that definitely gets them excited.
Yeah, those are the ones that they just make sense, and it's kind of a no-brainer at a certain point. And the important thing is, I think sometimes the sustainability aspect of it can actually get lost in those things, because then it becomes, well, this just makes financial sense, and like operationally that's just a smart thing to do. And even like maybe if initially it was driven by sustainability, which it was our engineering teams, that said, I think we should be collecting this gas, and we can flare it, we can do more with it. And then they presented the financial and operational case, and but then it kind of flipped. And so now you want to make sure that you still get that sustainability narrative into those efforts. And we try to do that, like by, if you're going to have a financial KPI and if you're going to have an operational KPI, let's add a sustainability KPI too. So, whether it's like, shifting to like a collection perspective, it's like labor hours saved, fuel gallons saved, and emissions reduced by operational efficiencies. And we kind of put all those KPIs side by side so that sustainability is weighted, along with all the others.
I think that concept of measurement is such an important one, and to have a balanced scorecard so that you're looking at the full opportunity. What are some of the other things that the Recology is doing from an innovation perspective, maybe leveraging AI or automating some, like manual recycling inspection work that you're finding some success with, or that might be driving some of those great sustainability and operational successes?
Yeah, I think this is a big area for Recology. We're kind of going through this like full digital transformation right now, and that's mainly aimed at realizing operational efficiencies. And then you get, there's financial benefits from that. And, I have been pretty adamant about making sure that those aren't the only things that people are thinking about, because as we've been talking about and are going to continue to talk about, the operational efficiencies and the financial and economic benefits align with sustainability. And so I have been working with our teams. For example, we're piloting using AI for contamination monitoring. So I think many companies are moving in this direction, or kind of are already doing this, putting cameras on your trucks so you can, I think most people start with kind of automated overcharges, and then eventually maybe you move into, can we monitor contamination with this? And from my perspective, we've been doing those pilots. I think it's best like focus on a small scale first, focus on working out the kinks, one area, a handful of routes, And then, seeing, when we do, can we do targeted outreach based on what we're seeing, and how is that changing, contamination, or how is that changing behavior? Because ultimately, if it's not changing anything, it's not an investment that we're going to make. And what we've seen, at least initially, is that using AI for contamination monitoring, I mean, it not only saves a ton of time, like in other areas, we still have people that are going out there physically to lift bins and do lid lifts and kind of use a tablet to mark and say, okay, there's contamination. But it's allowed us to be more targeted in our outreach and kind of generate trends and insights to say, okay, on this route, we saw an increase in, people bagging their recyclables. So we're going to do targeted outreach, for that, rather than, maybe what our traditional outreach would just be like general best practices for sorting, and really seeing, how we can drive behavior change, leveraging AI in that way. So I think that's still, it's definitely still being developed. I don't know that there's kind of a perfect system out there yet, but like that's something that I'm really excited about, because that just had so many downstream benefits too, not just from a behavior change perspective, but then, when you get down to the MRF or the compost facility, like cleaner commodities, cleaner end products, less just time spent like fixing equipment from contamination, things like that. I mean, there's just so many benefits that come out of it, and I think it will allow us to just really be more efficient with like how we're using our time as well. So that's I would say one example of how we're leveraging tech.
I think one of the big challenges that it really helps solve is the frequency of measurement and how much you can leverage data to make improvements into your operations or your relationships with your customers. I think there's a concept that a lot of sustainability programs are wrapped up in like an annual report, right? You look at it once a year and report out and hope you made some movement towards your disclosed goals. But certainly when we see customers that are or companies that are engaging in digital transformation and increasing the frequency with which they're getting data insights, from the systems deployed across their operations, they can operationalize and really use those more frequently to help their operations achieve goals faster, right? And that's one of the big advantages, that we love to see the embrace of technology driving, not just a tick box exercise, but actually make it a core part of the metrics that you look in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Absolutely. I mean, that I think that's a big shift that we'll start to see. Not just, I think even in like the waste resource recovery industry, but for sustainability in general, is this shift away from these, giant annual sustainability reports where it's like, okay, every metric and disclosure just lives in here, but it's happening once a year. Because the reality is, I don't know how many people actually read, like, I am a sustainability person. This is what I live and breathe. And um, I do not go and comb through, every company's annual sustainability report like every single year. It's just too much. People want more dynamic information, and our customers and our municipalities want that too. They don't want to hear how we're performing just once a year. They want to see, to what you were saying, Geoff, okay, we implemented this new program or this new initiative, and let's get more regular updates. And I think, so that's from like the external perspective, and internally it allows us to be more nimble, and years ago, and we definitely still have areas that are like this, where we sometimes only can get access to data, once or twice a year, because it's the process of gathering it is just so time intensive that we only do it that infrequently. And then when you've set goals and targets, it's very difficult, when it's almost like a trailing, progress report of like, we want to know how we're performing against this. And well, we just finished collecting the data, but that was for actually the last 6 months. So I don't really know how we're performing like in the present moment. Now we'll get back to you in 3 months with that information. And it's very hard to see exactly how, the things that you're implementing are impacting your actual operations. So this digital transformation, I think, for many people, there's going to have there will be so many operational benefits, but I am excited for it from that perspective of being able to better monitor and track things, from that sustainability performance perspective.
As you brought up the data point there, Julia, and gathering the data, the frequency, the accuracy of the data, the attendees on the webinar are particularly interested in learning more about the greenhouse gas inventory side of things, which feeds into the data collection, right? Your inventory just doesn't happen overnight. It's the end product of collecting many different data points, whether you're looking at scopes 1, 2, or 3, applying the right emission factors, ensuring that the data is accurate, and congratulations on this, probably having that inventory audited, which I know Recology had the 2022 greenhouse gas inventory verified.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more about the challenges you ran into in developing a greenhouse gas inventory, especially when some of the attendees may not have even prepared their first inventory?
Yeah.
And then for those challenges, what were some of the solutions, whether tech or otherwise, what were some of the solutions that worked for Recology?
Yeah, I think, for those that haven't yet developed an inventory, I think, one piece of advice is just to pick one source and kind of focus on that, and focus on, okay, getting that data, not just data accuracy, but also data completeness. And, for us being, a larger and, sometimes, decentralized company, because we are so localized, we rely a lot on, our internal stakeholders to help us get that data. We, have too many operating companies to be able to call every single fuel vendor and say, hey, can you please send us our fuel data? It's too much for one team. So we leverage, our operations managers and other folks, to help us get that data. And we've been successful in doing that by rolling out, SOPs and policies. And if you're able to set internal goals and you get support from leadership on those as well, I find that also helps. That also helps kind of bring people in and understand, why am I providing this data, and like, what do you need it for? And I find that if there's a policy that they can adhere to, and it's clear that this is in support of, our goal, for example, we had a goal to power our fleet with 90% renewable or alternative fuels by 2022. And to align with that, we created a policy, to encourage the use of renewable and alternative fuels. And as part of that, required regular reporting of fuel data to our sustainability team. And for folks understanding that goal was, aligned and supported at the highest levels of leadership, and also understanding how did this benefit them. And so one core piece of it was demonstrating that this was not just something that, we Recology came up with and said, we want this to be an external goal. We had seen through RFPs and, other new growth opportunities that many of our customers and communities were asking for this. They were saying, we want you to be using cleaner fuels in your fleet. And so, it again, tying it to, some people are motivated by sustainability and some aren't. So finding kind of another motivator to hitch your wagon to and say, okay, well, this is the benefit for you. And then, we started to look at technology solutions and can we, install systems that will just automate that process to collect the fuel data and spit out these reports that we're looking for. And so then it became, a process of getting our like IT team on board and operations teams on board to like really roll those types of projects out.
Just to pop in an additional sub question there, Julia,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, automation or some extent of automation. Why automate? Why? So you've made the decision, why not just stick to collecting the data in Excel? What was the drive for automation?
Efficiency, uniformity, standardization, accuracy, I think kind of keeping it starting in Excel really helped get buy-in and got people to understand, why this is important and them for them to then see that data being reported up to the highest levels externally in our sustainability report, internally in other communications, and seeing that they were contributing to that and supporting that was important. But then ultimately, we wanted and still want to be able to collect that data more dynamically. And to automate it makes it less of a burden and makes it easier to, either track it. We're not quite at the stage of tracking it in real time, but being able to pull that data more seamlessly, and feel more confident in the accuracy. User error is also just always going to be a potential. And I think going through a verification process, you learn a ton. So I would say, and verifiers are not out to get you. They're there to support you and help you through the process. And our first verification process took probably twice as long as it should have. But we learned from it. We documented, processes and changes, and we, cut that process in half the next year that we did it. So it will continue to get easier. And so I definitely encourage anyone that hasn't gone through a verification process to try it and to just, go for it before you're required to do it, because you will learn a lot from it.
Sense. I know we have so many more topics that we can cover together, Julia, but we're coming up close to time and we can continue the conversation in the next section as well, the roundtable. But Geoff, any last minute thoughts or questions for Julia before we move on?
No, I think we can cover everything in the next section. I think just one of the interesting nuggets I caught on to with the renewable fuel was that the opportunity to measure and buy into that opportunity was validated through opportunities in the market that you were seeing through RFPs, and that your customers were in fact looking for this. And so I love not only the internal story there, but also that there's a growth story, and that your customers are validating the internal assertions that you'd come to. So that's probably something we can get into a little bit more in the next section as well.
So Julia, just before we move on, one last question for our attendees. You've shared so much amazing information. What is one small, low-hanging fruit, tangible tip that they can then move on next week when they go into meetings with senior management to be like, hey, I have an idea on sustainability. What's one little tip that you can share with them that they probably can table at that meeting?
I mean, for me, it's been finding what drives people, and that's gonna be different for everyone. But like I'll give an example of, we have kind of our director that oversees our organics and landfill operations. Like, he is just such an ops guy and is so driven by operational efficiencies. And kind of sat him down and said, well, you recognize, like, if we're treating this contamination upstream, we were evaluating contamination at one of our compost facilities. If we contaminate this upstream, yeah, we're going to save some money, hauling the material that's then just going to go to the landfill afterwards. But we're going to save money on fuel. We're going to reduce emissions. We're going to reduce safety liabilities from people having to like handle this material twice. And we kind of just showed him the landscape of everything. And I kid you not, it was literally like a light bulb went off in his brain, and he was like, "It's ESG." And and I know maybe people are moving away from ESG, but to this day, like, every project that we're working on together, he now calls out, and there's a sustainability benefit to that too. Like, he had just was able to shift his mindset to not just being operationally focused, but seeing the full environmental or social benefits. And it's been very rewarding for me to be like, wow, you can get people to shift their mindset a bit, and then you create more supporters and more champions for your initiatives as well.
Talk to people in their language, right?
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Thanks so very much, Julia. DeAnne?
Yes, thanks, Julia, for sharing your insights into how Recology is helping to integrate sustainability into its operations. We are now going to head into the roundtable portion of today's discussion. So all of our audience members are going to be unmuted at this point. Remember, if you would prefer to stay muted, you have the option to put yourself back in mute. No worries. Also, I ask that you please use the raise hand button if you wish to weigh in on a topic or have a question that you want to direct to Julia, Raj, or Geoff, or to one another for that matter. And also, if you prefer to remain on mute and submit your question or comment in writing, that's also an option. Just use the Q&A button, please. And we will get started. So I'd like to kick things off by asking where the demand for sustainability insights are coming from in your experience. Geoff, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, I love this one because it's so dynamic, and we talked with Julia about some of the areas of demand for Recology, and it's noteworthy to point out that Recology is operating in the Northern California, Washington, and Oregon, and unique market conditions there that are shaping the way that Recology is deploying a sustainability strategy. But we see it in a number of different flavors depending on where you are in the country, and almost always the demand is coming from the incentive to grow. And so that growth might be market share and moving into new markets, getting new industries or expanding lines of businesses that you're operating. I also like the demand to become maybe more vertically integrated and reduce reliance on suppliers. We see that much of the industry is making a move toward that type of vertical integration, managing more of their supply chain, becoming closer to the end markets that they might be selling recyclables to. And so, that comes from a unique type of measurement and understanding the materials that you're managing, the sources that they're coming from, and how you can interact with those generators, as well as the end markets you can market them to, and how you can work to increase the value back to your company and your customers when you're selling those materials. So we see it from customers, we see it from expanding lines of businesses, increasing that vertical integration management of the materials that you're generating. We also see it in the labor market. I'll share, we recently did a tour of a MRF here outside of Boston, and it was a beautiful brand new MRF, robotics and air handling systems and all sorts of technological innovations. But what they were most proud of was the climate controlled environment that they provided for their sorters and QA pickers, right? And so folks that have been generational workers for this recycling company through this upgrade were actually provided a consistent and safe place to work, where previously had really been a challenging place to work, especially in a very climate diverse area here like the Northeast. And so that people component and the labor component and safety, that was a big point of demand for this company to make a big investment, maybe even more so than the robotics and everything else that they did to manage the materials, but just to focus on the people. So we see the demand coming from a number of different areas, and really driven by the local conditions that companies are looking to take advantage of in their businesses.
I love that last point, Geoff, that you just made on the MRF facility, and the most exciting part for them being that climate control for their workers, right? To work in an environment that's safe, which, coming back to what Julie was referencing at the beginning, traditional sustainability often just looks at that environmental component, the ability to reduce greenhouse gases and reduce the environmental impact. But there's also that whole social aspect of sustainability, especially in a world that we're experiencing some amount of climate impacts and heat stress and all the other stresses that workers are facing. That safety component is just as important for waste and recycling companies, right? It's possibly one of the most unsafe industries if you look at the rankings in terms of safety for the guys on the people on the trucks and the people in the plants and the sorters and the pickers and everyone else. Tends to have a bit of a high incident rate. So I love that last point, that they're most excited about the safety of the workers in that climate control MRF.
And to Julia's point, it had a very recognizable operational and financial payback. So their productivity has gone up, sick time has gone down, their retention has gone up, right? So the cost of hiring has gone down as well. Their uptime for the facility has gone up because they're able to keep more contamination that the robotics and automation can't out of the facility. So overall, they've been able to do more of the work that they're intending to with the resources they have available. So not just a safety or a sustainability or a people component. There's that power of, and there's a great operational and financial incentive for them to have done so, right? So it's a really well-rounded story, but important to tell both sides.
Yeah, so more proactive on the safety side.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think it's what you just hitting on what you said, Geoff. It's important not to miss, I think we're from a sustainability perspective, there has been a shift away from that, like sustainability is just, a marketing storytelling piece. At the same time, it is important not to miss those opportunities and because they're very, easily in many of these situations where we're seeing this strong synergy and overlap between whether it's operational benefits, financial safety benefits. If you don't slide the sustainability bit into that, then no one else is going to recognize it. And so, but then go beyond just the storytelling, and, it takes a little bit more work. You have to, put in a little bit more legwork to do this, but pull out, the tangible sustainability measure and pull out the tangible sustainability metrics. Not, don't just say like, oh, it's sustainable too, like really, really, have that data to back it up. And I think you'll be pretty amazed at how oftentimes the sustainability story is the one people end up wanting to tell the most, because, it's more exciting to hear how we're, prioritizing worker safety or reducing emissions to, we realized operational efficiencies. Like, externally, I don't think that uh, gets people as excited.
Well, and it can be a way to tell a story that you might not otherwise want to tell publicly. So I'll use an example of route optimization, right? This is a classic tactic that's used by the industry to save money, right, on collection operations. That is generally not a story that you want to promote, especially when you're working closely within a community that might be concerned about the jobs you might be eliminating because you've gone through, an efficiency, audit or practice to reduce the amount of resources you're using to collect the material. But when you tell it in the terms of reduced impact to the roads, right, reduced traffic in the communities that you service, increased air quality, right, reduced air emissions, more resources from a collection perspective, maybe to diversify the materials you're collecting, right? Maybe you can spin up and add recycling access where it wasn't previously, or things like that, or a manner of keeping costs low, right? And that's a big differentiator for a lot of companies in our industry, is simply to help fight against the increasing costs of their operation, as that would impact their customers. And so having a different way to engage with your stakeholders, your customers, your communities through this other way of measuring what would otherwise just be good operational practices for you can be a great way to really kind of show off the good work that you're doing as a company without coming off in a way that might seem threatening to your customers or communities.
Yeah, as long as you're actually doing it.
As long as you're doing it. That's why the measurement's important, right?
Yes.
The proofs and the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta have the data to back it up.
Yeah.
Julia, I'd like to direct this next one to you to start. How is Recology using sustainability insights to leverage as a growth driver?
Yeah, I think we have maybe a unique relationship with the markets that we serve. We operate in mostly franchise markets where, we hold contracts with municipalities to provide service, and we get the exclusive right to do so. And, so when we think about growth drivers, it does afford us the ability to think a bit more long term, because there's not that risk that, like, we're gonna, potentially lose this customer, right away. We often have a contract for 10 or more years, and so it does allow us to be a bit more innovative and try new things, because we know that we're going to maintain our customer base, and we may be able to go in for a rate increase if we find that a new program or a new service is increasing costs. And one, you just have to be smart about kind of building some of that stuff into your contracts, but then we then take insights that we're seeing in surrounding or existing markets. And I use the example of we see a new contract going out to bid, and we see, like, what is that jurisdiction asking for in this RFP? Are they asking for more innovative programs and services? Are they asking for a more sustainable operations? I mentioned, fuel. Now a lot of people are focused on zero emission vehicles. And we kind of use those as indicators of where our business needs to go if it's not already headed in that direction. And then kind of on the more internal side, I think, we're able to see, I used like contamination as an example, but I think, focusing on areas of the business where we're getting feedback that you know, we're kind of spending money inefficiently, whether it's, we're transporting to third-party haulers, or sorry, third-party processors, because, we have outdated MRFs, and we've been doing that for several years now, and we can see that, we're spending millions of dollars a year just on transportation costs. And, there's grants out there that we could leverage to, help pay for upgrades. And if we can also kind of bring in material from outside sources, we, know that we have enough material to justify, upgrading this MRF. And that just took a lot of kind of gathering data from, our municipal partners to say, like, hey, are you willing to commit tons to this? It was evaluating our own internal operations, then ultimately just making that business decision. Okay, saying, okay, this is a smart idea. This is, a good decision, and we want to make this investment. And then tracking that too on the back end and saying, was that actually a smart investment? And proving that out, so that did we actually reduce emissions? Did we actually, cut fuel costs? Like, how much are we actually saving on transportation? And that's allowed us to learn and then replicate going forward.
Geoff, anything that you want to add just generally about what you're seeing in terms of the resource and recycling industry leveraging sustainability to drive growth?
Yeah, I think certainly a theme that we're seeing, and Julie, you're kind of indicating this as well, is just staying on top of the composition of the materials that you're managing, and what are the opportunities to drive efficiencies in your operation or growth as a result. And so certainly we know that there is a changing landscape as far as the materials that would be showing up at recycling or processing facilities, organics facilities as well. And so, being able to understand what are those materials, where are they coming from, and what's the best way to manage them, are driving decisions into investments for upgrading MRFs, managing challenging products or materials that might be sticking around for a while. Actually, Julie, one of the things that we didn't get into is how Recology is delving into the challenging subject of plastics with I think it's the Circularity Moonshot initiative, and that's not unique to Recology, right? We see companies like Republic getting into polymers, and other recycling firms really trying to tackle the plastics issues. We see other companies that are investing in influencing legislation that might influence EPR legislation, trying to streamline the types of packaging materials that are brought into markets. So that composition analysis, and then building stakeholder relationships and strategies to manage it in a more profitable way that really puts the processor in control, is a huge shift that we're seeing, right? That recycling facilities are moving from, or recycling companies are moving from, simply receiving and trying to figure out what to do with all of this material, and rather moving into the driver's seat and saying, we understand what's coming in, where it's coming from, the best way to handle it, or ask for it not to come to our doorstep at all, and getting that communication out so that it's directed to the right place.
Yeah, and I think to add on that, Geoff, now with AI and other tech, like thinking mostly in a MRF setting here, you have the ability to make that decision, and say, is it going to be worth our investment to install this new piece of equipment so that we can, recover more of the plastic that's making, the film plastic that's making it through, or clean up the cardboard stream so that we can, get a better, price when we're selling it to end markets. I think that one thing that, we're looking at at our MRFs is, just installing like a camera on that residual line that has, AI built in and can tell you exactly, here's how many valuable commodities are going out the door into your residual stream. And here is the value of all of those commodities based on, what the market is telling you right now. And based on, all of the valuable materials that are going out to the landfill, it actually would make sense to install, a robot on the end line here to pull those out because there's a clear ROI for that. Or maybe there's not, but again, you're using those insights to inform your decisions. And, I think on the plastics piece, that's one where some of that I would say is driven more by external stakeholders. I think, when we think about plastics, it's often a pretty small portion of our total recyclables that come into the MRF. But there's so much, I would say outsized focused on it from a public perception. And so as a business you need to use insights to make that decision and to be able to back it up to say, if you're not going to invest in recovering film plastics or recovering a certain type of plastic, why not? And be able to back that up to your stakeholders to say, well, actually this material is really only 1% of our total commodities. And did you know that actually recycling cardboard has a much greater, avoids significantly more emissions than, recycling plastic does. So we're going to make the investment here and not there. And not that, plastics aren't important and, cause public health concerns and things like that. But have that justification that's driven by, the insights that you're seeing.
And you did mention, Julia, that health and safety do fit into your sustainability strategy. Would you rank that within your top three of the factors influencing your sustainability strategy at Recology?
I think, kind of to something that was mentioned earlier, I think many folks probably think of sustainability and health and safety as separate. Many companies, safety is the top or, a top priority. And I would say probably for every waste company, it should be. And I think it's more about that there's probably a disconnect between, safety and sustainability. And so it's driving those connections and helping people understand how it's a bit of both. And so we certainly, are part of this digital transformation is, to kind of has that health and safety lens to it, right? And sometimes those can be less tangible, but I don't think it makes them any less important. And I think just what we've been talking about, it's figuring out, for the things that are less tangible, can you explain it in another way or show another benefit? And so that makes people recognize like reducing the number of driver hours, the time that it takes to pick up a route. That seems, like an operational benefit. It saves money. It actually is a safety thing too, because that means the drivers are out on the road for less time and there's less, possibility for risk. There's less, time for accidents. And again, just kind of thinking it in all of those ways, you do have to bring in some of the storytelling. And so that's also why it can be hard when companies are shifting a bit to just being more like data driven, and focusing on, just disclosures as opposed to like, a big sustainability report. You don't want to miss out on those opportunities. So you just have to figure out where else to include them.
And DeAnne, if I may add there, the question asks to some extent about the prioritization of sustainability topics, specifically health and safety. One of the presiding agencies globally on sustainability standards, it's called in short SASB, they've actually mapped a series of sustainability topics to different industries. And within the waste management industry, they've actually identified under the human capital section that one of the top sustainability issues which can impact the financial performance of a waste management company is employee health and safety. So the sustainability standards are pointing towards health and safety as what should be a top priority for a waste management company. And for any waste management company who might be grappling with the slew of sustainability topics that they can tackle, standards such as SASB can be that compass, can give you some amount of direction on where you can start and which topics you can possibly prioritize. In this case, health and safety is a great place to start.
Yeah, and I would, I think for anyone that doesn't align with SASB, I also think, because I think that's a great call out, Raj, it can also just be something that you align to internally. You don't need to publish that information externally
Right.
for it to have an impact on your performance. I think that if you can, we did that initially. We kind of did a benchmarking against our competitors, and here's where Recology lands, with SASB metrics, and even just showing that comparison can often, encourage, others to say, okay, like this is an area that we need to focus on, and now we have a metric to align to, and maybe we adjust it, specific for our business, or we don't report it externally, for certain reasons, but to have something to align to and at least drive you internally, even if it's not going to be perfect, even if you're not going to have every single metric, I think something like SASB is a really great resource.
I just want to remind the audience members that they are free to submit questions using the Q&A function. I'd be happy to share them with our panelists. But in the absence of those, I will ask, how do you ensure resources are being allocated to sustainability, particularly the technology to support it? Julia, you want to kick us off again?
Yeah. The resources can certainly be a challenge. I think, not to sound like a broken record, but usually you have to make more than just the sustainability case for something. If you're going to ask for resources for something, it is helpful to find other stakeholders that will benefit from that, understand how they will benefit from that, measure how they will benefit from that, and use that to build your business case of, okay, this has a sustainability and an operational and a safety benefit. And, these three benefits, as opposed to just the one benefit, like, really build that business case. But then I would also say that don't let a lack of technology prevent you from getting started, because then you may never get started on certain things. I think of certainly, yeah, I also think that if you're not in a place if you don't have the resources to leverage the technology appropriately, you often end up maybe investing in this piece of technology, and then you just don't use it, or people that aren't trained on it, or it just becomes more work, or just as much work as it was previously. So I would say, we have certainly, fallen into that trap before, where you kind of invest in this platform that you think is gonna, automate everything and track everything for you. And that's not always the case. And so, be very clear in what your business needs are, and what, requirements, you're seeking something to meet, and test that for sure.
Great. Raj, Geoff, do you have anything you want to add as far as that goes?
And I think Julia, you mentioned, earlier, I think there's two key components. I like the kind of the sponsorship, or the business sponsorship example that you gave earlier. So certainly for any initiative, you always want to have an executive or a sponsor from within the business unit that you're looking to do that initiative with. That'll help ensure that you've got the right messaging to your internal and external stakeholders, a way to keep it top of the agenda, right, and top of priority lists against all sorts of other, business activities. So that sponsorship is important. And then I agree with you, Julia, that the not pursuing technology as the first step, but actually going out and testing your theories and helping that to inform whether it is a technology procurement that you're looking to do, or an automation. But getting started on the activity, even in a manual sense, can really start to inform what you need to do to automate or scale that particular initiative. Rather than just starting with that technological. I'd add one more is engage with your vendors, engage with your partners or peers, that are able to help with lessons learned or best practices, to help you on those types of journeys, or if you're trying to make a business case and get the right resources for an initiative. Engaging with those outside of your company can be a great place to get started.
And that recommendation is, I'd say it's industry agnostic. From the sustainability side, our observation is that the biggest gap and more often the most overlooked step that many organizations make in pursuing a sustainability program is that stakeholder engagement component. It's one that organizations tend to rush through quickly, thinking that they can chat with a few stakeholders, figure out what those stakeholders need. But as was a recurring theme through Julia's comments on the webinar, it's important you speak to people in their language. It's important that you engage with stakeholders, both internal and external to the organization. So I think one of the examples you gave, Julia, was if you found a community was bagging their recycles or their waste, you had to find a way to then re-engage with them, right? That was one of the specific examples you gave. So navigating the stakeholder landscape is possibly the most important step within a sustainability program. And it's not a step that you can complete at the beginning and then kick up your legs and say, that's great, I wholly understand what everybody wants, and now I can, go on with the project. It's a step that takes continuous re-engagement throughout the life cycle of the project. Many projects we've seen clients have tried to start, and they've developed this amazing project that has tangible business outcomes. And then a stakeholder comes in at the end and says, I don't buy into this. I don't know why we're doing this. It might look like it makes sense on paper, but I don't see the value in this. And that's a very good example of where stakeholder engagement would have missed a critical stakeholder in the development of the project, and now the whole project is stalled. So whether you're looking for resources or tech to support, or just trying to implement components of a sustainability program, it's critical to have that stakeholder engagement. So thanks to Julia and Geoff for bringing up that point repeatedly, because it's a little soapbox that I stand on as a sustainability professional, because most of our clients miss that step.
Great. I would like to thank Julia, Raj, and Geoff for their insights today. We've learned a lot about sustainability and the opportunities it provides, but also the need to get your stakeholders engaged, to put resources toward it, and to report that data in meaningful ways that resonate with the stakeholders, right? So thank you very much for sharing those insights again. And I want to also let you know that AMCS invites you to participate in a post-event sustainability assessment. Let me just advance here, sorry. And you can reach out to an AMCS contact that you have, or the company will be following up after this webinar as well. They are also providing various resources that you can take advantage of to improve your sustainability game. So make sure to take advantage of that. And also keep your eye out for more discussion opportunities like the one that we had today with AMCS in 2025 that will explore the industry's biggest trends and uncover ways to transform challenges into opportunities. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, DeAnne.